Hi, did you know I used to talk a lot as a child in my sleep? Now I know the reason why. I'll tell you the reason at the end of today's video. Before today's video, I would like to say hi to all the students of Ghana National College. They have been very supportive. And to all other students in Ghana, you are the reason why today's video is available for you. Go subscribe, like, and share. My name is Della. I know it's Christmas, but hey, don't go nowhere. Help mama out if there's a need to, and the little time you've got, learn. 21st century illiterate is not the one who is unable to read and write, but the 21st century illiterate is one who can't learn, unlearn, and relearn. So on this channel, I help you better understand, answer your essays so that you can get your A's. So let's move straight up to today's lesson. Alright, so let's go over today's objectives. At the end of today's lesson, students should be able to explain how Emily Bronte's use of settings affects characters in the novel. Then the second objective is to exhibit knowledge and introduction of essay. Every essay in literature should include themes, gist, character identification, and thesis statement. Today's question. Today's question is to comment on the significance of settings in Wuthering by Emily Brontë. And we all know that every essay has its own format. And in literature, our format is you give a gist about the book, a little gist about the book first before you continue. So this is an example of a gist. Here is it, an example of a gist right here, an example of a gist right here. So you can recreate it, you can be very creative, okay? English author Emily Brontë, which was initially published in 1847. Or you can recreate it. Wuthering is written by Emily Brontë in the year 1847. When you're done with your gist, make sure that your gist is no more than 3 lines, because it's going to be boring for the examiner. If you write a lot of gist, it's just like you're narrating. So you just give your gist, which should be just 3 lines. When you're done with your gist, then you move on to your themes. There are so many themes in Wuthering Heights. For instance, theme of love. So if you say theme of love, you don't just leave it at that. You make sure you give evidence from the book, which tells the examiner that you really have knowledge of the book, and you can't just say theme of love and leave it at that. So evidence is the love that existed between Catherine Earnshaw and Heathcliff. So the love was so strong to the extent that when Catherine died, Heathcliff paid the great grave diggers to cut some parts of Catherine's coffin so that when he also dies, he will be buried in the same coffin as Catherine, so that they will be united in death. So this is an example of theme of love. So you're supposed to mention 2 themes. We are done with 1. The second theme I would like to talk about is theme of vengeance. Theme of vengeance in the sense that Heathcliff wanted to vent his anger and his revenge on the Earnshaws, including the Lintons. So we realized that when he came back and he was rich and so refined, he lent so much money to Hindley so that he would be indebted to Heathcliff, because Hindley started drinking and gambling when his wife Frances died. So that's one way he vented his revenge on the Earnshaws. Then we are done with our gist. Then we are done with our themes. So we move to character identification. What is the purpose of character identification? You just want the examiner to know that you really know your character. So just mention a character and tell us something very brief about this character. For example, Catherine Earnshaw is the daughter of Mr. and Mrs. Earnshaw, and she's a free-spirited person. Another character is Edgar Linton. Edgar Linton, who is the son of Mr. and Mrs. Linton, a well-refined young man. So then you are done with your gist, you are done with your themes, and you are done with your character identification. Then the next point is to do your thesis statement. You do your thesis statement. Okay, so just hold on. So we move on to our next point, which is thesis statement. What is the purpose of thesis statement? Thesis statement is just to let the examiner know what you are about to do in your essay. So it should include a question. For example, the following essay will comment on the significance of settings in Wuthering Heights. Or the essay below will comment on the significance of settings in Wuthering Heights. Or this essay comments on the significance of settings in Wuthering Heights. Or the following paragraphs will comment on the significance of settings in Wuthering Heights. So this one, you can personalize it. You can make it your own. You can be creative. So you don't write 4 thesis statements. You pick just one. I gave these 4 examples just to let you know there are so many ways you can write your thesis statement. So you just write one thesis statement. Don't write all the 4. Okay, so we are done with our thesis statement. Then we move on to our next slide. So in literature, when a question is given, you should be able to define the key word. So the key word in the question is settings. So let's give the definition for settings. Settings is the time and place, weather condition and temperature where the story took place. So we are done with our definition of settings. So if the question includes a keyword like flashback, you should be able to define the flashback before you continue with your essay. Then let's start with our essay. Okay, the settings in Wuthering Heights hold great significance in the overall narrative and themes of the novel. There are 2 main settings, Wuthering Heights and Tres Cross Ground. So I mentioned 2 main because there are other settings. Okay, so the 2 main settings, Wuthering Heights and Tres Cross Ground, represent vastly different environments, which in turn reflect the stark differences in character, personalities, and social classes. So there are 2 main settings. Wuthering Heights, the household where Heathcliff grew up, where Catherine grew up, where Hindley grew up. That's one part of the setting. So that's one setting. Another setting is Tres Cross Ground, where Isabella Linton, Edgar Linton, Mr. and Mrs. Linton stays. That's Tres Cross Ground. There's another setting, which is the moors. The moors is the vast grassland that divides Wuthering Heights and Tres Cross Ground. The vast grassland where Heathcliff and Catherine play. Yes, so let's move on. Okay, so for Wuthering Heights, I would like to state some adjective that can be used to describe the household, some traits, some things about the household. Wuthering Heights, with its harsh, rugged landscape and isolated location on the moors, mirrors the wild and passionate nature of its inhabitants. So when you are done defining your keyword, and in this case, which is settings, then you move on to your essay proper. You should make sure you should have your topic sentences. A lot of students really forget their topic sentence and then they move straight ahead and start giving their explanation, which makes it as if you are just narrating. So what you should do is you should have your topic sentences. Let's move on. Firstly, Wuthering Heights is one of the settings in Wuthering Heights, and how you be able to differentiate the household Wuthering Heights and the title of the book is to underline the title. So at the first mention of Wuthering Heights, you underline it, which makes it the title of the book. So one of the settings in Wuthering Heights, the story, is Wuthering Heights, the household. I hope you're getting me. I had to say, me snit. Now my true book ne title, yes, snit. So for me to differentiate the 2 is that one snit, you should underline it to show that you're talking about the title. But because if you're snitter, you know me underlining. Hope you understand. Hope you get it. Okay. Alright, so let's move on. Firstly, one sentence on Wuthering Heights is Wuthering Heights. Full stop. Then you continue. You tell us the people that live in Wuthering Heights and what they experience, how their life was like. So you can pick an example of a character like Heathcliff. Heathcliff is one character that lives in Wuthering Heights. What happened to him? He was in love with Catherine, but was unable to get Catherine, and therefore planned to vent his revenge or anger on the Enshaws and the Lintons. So this sentence has affected his character trait. He wanted to vent his anger, extreme anger. Hope you are getting me. Another character that was affected by the household Wuthering Heights is Catherine Enshaw. And we all know, as a lady dear, you should be well mannered. You should talk very well. You should eat very well. You should comport yourself. But in this case, Catherine is a wild child. She's a wild child. She runs, she hops, she jumps like a boy. She's wild, she's furious. When she's angry, she's very angry, and she has a mind of her own. So the household has affected how she behaves. Okay, then you go. Secondly, Tres Cross Grange is also one sentence in Wuthering Heights. Secondly, Tres Cross Grange is one sentence in Wuthering Heights. Full stop. Then you move on. Which characters live at Tres Cross Grange? We have Edgar Linton, we have Isabella Linton, we have Mrs. and Mr. Linton. You realize that their lifestyles are different from Wuthering Heights. They're very comported, high class, they eat well, they talk well, they use cutleries, they comport themselves. I say sikafo, say sikafo. What's a sikafo? Among kasa baby. What was the Kenny or kasa baby? That's sikafo among kasa. They don't do a lot of stuff, but you know, home as sikabon. Yes, they don't do a lot of stuff. Look, you see, so they are well mannered to the extent that how they are well mannered, how they are well behaved affected some other characters. Tell me, which character was affected by Tres Cross Grange, their behavior? Tell me. Yes. Okay, so Catherine Enshaw was really and truly affected by how Tres Cross Grange former behaving. You realize that when Catherine and Heathcliff were playing on the moors, and one day the chance on Tres Cross Grange, they peeped through the window and saw Isabella and Edgar Linton playing the piano, and they started making strange and weird and funny faces. And so they tried to run away, but the dog at Tres Cross Grange, pounced on Catherine and Okano. Into Okano, Mrs. Linton, being the lady, she took Catherine in and Osaka Heathcliff said, I don't know why you feel that. Then Heathcliff wanted to enter, but Mama in room. So then they took care of Catherine. Catherine stayed there for 5 whole weeks. And Catherine came back as a refined young woman. She stopped jumping all over, flipping all over. She started behaving like a lady that she's supposed to be. So the household Wuthering Heights has affected Catherine's behavior and trait. And then when she came back to Wuthering Heights, she was like, she told Heathcliff, you're such a dirty boy. You were such a dirty boy. You see, so Tres Cross Grange, class, luxury, and their traits affected Catherine's behavior. Yes, and another setting in Wuthering Heights is the moors. The moors I told you earlier is the vast grassland that divides Tres Cross Grange and Wuthering Heights. This is the place where the grass grow very wildly. You realize that when you grow grass in your house, you mow it, you water it, and then you control how it grows. But this vast land, that grass you don't control it, so they grow very wild. So you can use this to describe how it affects some of the characters. For instance, Catherine grew up being a wild child. She grew up being a wild child, just as the moors grow without no control. Heathcliff also grew up being a wild child. And there again, you can use the moor also to explain that it symbolizes loneliness. And some characters in the story end up becoming lonely. For instance, Heathcliff loved Catherine so much, not person worrying on, but it never happened because he didn't match up her social class. He wasn't having money and he wasn't a gentleman. So he lost the love of his life and he became very lonely. Catherine, on the other hand, married Edgar Linton, whom she wasn't in love with, but she married Edgar Linton just because of his money and his high social class and luxury, but still ended up being lonely because while she was with Edgar Linton, she was still thinking about Heathcliff. So you can use these three settings: Wuthering Heights household, Stretch Cross Ground household, and the Moors, to explain how these characters are affected by these three settings. And then we move on to our conclusion. So for conclusion, you can personalize it, but this is just an example. The contrasting settings of Wuthering Heights and Stretch Cross Ground serve to emphasize the stark divisions within the novel, both in terms of social class and in terms of love and destructive passion versus civilized behavior. The settings in Wuthering Heights plays a pivotal role in creating an atmosphere of turmoil, conflict, and contrasting forces, underlining the central themes of love, revenge, and societal constraint explored throughout the novel. So we've come to the end of... I've heard this so many times. Literature students complaining, literature ayadin. Hey, literature ayadin. If you put your mind to it, all you gotta do is to read your selected test. Don't wait for your teacher to come to the class before you read. You have to read. When the teacher comes and you guys are reading together, you already have knowledge of the said book or novel or drama. Okay. So, beautiful students, we've come to the end of today's lesson. Thank you so much for sticking and staying with me. My name is Della. You can call me Coffee. Teacher Coffee. Yes, I serve you the hottest lessons on the continent. And I want you to subscribe, share to your friends, and then like, and then give your comments. I want you to comment in the comment section your school. If you're from Adesado, try Adesado. If you're from Ghana National College, write Ghana National College. I want to know, what school are you? I love you all, and I'm going to be dropping another video very soon. Love you all, and be safe.